Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial we are building a powerful and practical workflow that automatically converts currencies using a free-to-use API and updates a SharePoint list with the latest result. The solution that we are going to build is when we fill in the amount in this column on a SharePoint list, then we're going to select the currency it needs to be converted from, and then the automated flow will convert this to the amount in euros. So let's get started. Start by heading over to Power Automate and click on Create. Choose the automated cloud flow. Then we're going to give this a name and we're going to look for the when an item is created trigger for SharePoint. First thing that we need to do is configure the trigger, and we're going to do this by selecting the site address and list that we are going to use. And in our example, this will be the YouTube example SharePoint site and the currency converter list. If you are not able to find the site address within drop-down menu, you can always copy the URL and paste it in here. The first action that we are going to add is a HTTP request to call the API. So look for HTTP and select this action. The first thing that we need to configure in our HTTP action is the URL of the API. And for this example, I am going to use the free Amdoren API, but you can select any API that you like, but this is just for testing purposes. And on the website, we see that this is the URL to request a conversion from currency A to currency B. So we're going to copy this URL and we're going to adjust it in the Power Automate flow. The first thing that we need to change from the URL is the API key, because this is one from their example and we need to have our own API key. I already got mine because you need to register for the website, make an account, and then you get a free to use API code. So I'm going to paste this in here. The second thing that we want to adjust from the URL is the currency that it's converted from, because in our scenario this is something that users can select themselves and we don't want this to be static. So we're going to remove the euro and we're going to paste in our dynamic content. So this is the currency that the user selects in the list so that the API knows from which currency it needs to be converted. The second thing that we want to adjust is the currency that is being converted to. Right now it's set to a static value, the Great British Pound, but we want to convert it to euro. So we're going to change this to EUR. I will put some of the bigger currency codes on the screen right now. And the last thing that we need to change to a dynamic value in this URL is the amount, because it's not always 50 that's being converted. It's something that the user chooses in the SharePoint list. So we're going to remove this and fill in the dynamic value. So now that we have our URL ready, it's time to select the method of the HTTP, and we are going to request data from the API. So we are going to select the get method. And that's all we need to configure for the HTTP action. On the website of our API, this is the format that the API response will be in. This is not something that we can directly use in the column, so we need to convert the API response. And we are going to do this with the Parse JSON action. So we're going to add this to our Power Automate flow. And the content needs to be referred to the result of the HTTP request. So we're going to fill in the body of the HTTP as the content for the Parse JSON action. And for the schema, we're going to take a look at the website of the API. See that this is the JSON format it will be returned in. So we're going to copy this. And there is a function within this Parse JSON action that says use sample payload to generate a scheme. So we're going to make use of this function. We're going to say done, and then you see that it automatically created a schema for us. And this tells Power Automate how to interpret the API response and ensures we can use the amount value in the next step. Finally, we're going to add our last action, which will be update item. And we want to update an item in SharePoint. And just as in the previous trigger, we want to configure the site address and the list name. On the third row, we need to select the unique identifier of the item to be updated. And in our scenario, this will be exactly the same item as the one that's triggering the flow. So we're going to refer to the ID of the original trigger. And then we're going to take a look at the advanced parameters to find the column that we actually want to update. And in our scenario, this will be the amount in euro column. So here we're going to fill in the response of the API. And as you can see from the HTTP, you only have the body. And because we are using the schema from the Parse JSON action, we are able to actually use the body amount column. So we're going to fill that in here, and then we're going to hit save. And now that we've saved our flow, we're going to check whether it's turned on. Always important to check that. We see that our flow is turned on, so we're going to start testing. And we're going to do so by adding a new item to the SharePoint list. And we're going to fill in an amount of 1000. And the currency that we're going to convert it from is Great British Pound. And we hope that the automated flow will automatically fill in the amount in euros. So let's take a look whether it works. And as you can see, the flow ran successfully. So let's refresh the web page for the SharePoint list. And as you can see, it automatically converted the 1000 pound to the right amount in euro. So now you're able to create flows that do the calculation for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.